On May 20, 2025, after nearly 23 years on death row, Benjamin Donnie Richie was executed by lethal injection in Indiana. He was 44 years old. In this story, we'll uncover what led him to death row, what he said before his death, and what he ate for his final meal. It all began on the evening of September 29, 2000, in Beech Grove, Indiana. A white van had just been reported stolen from a nearby gas station. That same night, during an unrelated traffic incident, Officer Matthew Hickey spotted the van driving by with 3 men inside. He ran the plates. The van was confirmed stolen. A pursuit began, and 2 more officers joined in, Robert Mercury and Officer Tony Zeppetella. But the van didn't make it far. After a short chase, it crashed into the yard of a quiet neighborhood home. The doors swung open. 2 of the men bolted. Officer Hickey managed to catch one of them, James Luttrell. But the second man, 20-year-old Benjamin Richie, ran. Officer Tony Zeppetella chased him on foot through backyards, over fences, dodging swing sets and sheds. Suddenly, Richie turned. He reached into his waistband, pulled out a 9mm Glock, and fired 5 times. Bill was wearing his bulletproof vest, but one bullet struck Officer Tony in the upper chest, just above his bulletproof vest. Tony fired back once, but then his legs gave out. He collapsed into the grass. His service weapon slipped from his hand. Officer Tony Zeppetella died in that backyard, one day before his 32nd birthday. He left behind a wife and 2 daughters. He had only been a police officer for 2 years. For reasons no one fully understood, Benjamin Richie had been carrying a wig that night. Maybe it was part of a disguise, or maybe it was paranoia. After the shooting, he tossed both the wig and the gun into a thick patch of brush, then slipped past the police perimeter. He made it to a friend's house and stayed there, free for the moment. The manhunt began immediately. Over 100 officers, SWAT teams, deputies, and investigators fanned out. Roads were blocked. Neighborhoods were shut down. No one was going home until Benjamin Richie was found. Hours later, a break came. An anonymous tip led them to a house. When officers arrived that morning, Richie was inside. This time, he didn't run. He didn't fight. He was arrested without resistance. The house belonged to Michael Moody, the 3rd man from the stolen van. He was also taken into custody. The manhunt was over. But the courtroom battle was just beginning. Inside the court, the picture of who Benjamin Richie was began to emerge. Born on May 30, 1980, Benjamin never knew his biological father. His mother, Marion Martin, struggled with alcohol and drug abuse, even while pregnant. She worked as a stripper, moved frequently, and was often absent. By the time Benjamin was just 3 years old, she had already abandoned him twice. When he entered school, he was already deeply affected. He fell behind, lashed out, and eventually dropped out in 9th grade. At age 10, he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where doctors diagnosed him with bipolar disorder and other cognitive issues linked to early trauma. He needed help, but the system didn't give him much. At 18, Benjamin was arrested for burglary and sent to prison. By 2000 he was out, but not truly free. He was still on probation, still drifting, and his life was far from stable. His past wasn't behind him. It was waiting to catch up. And on September 29, 2000, that's exactly what happened. After his arrest for the shooting of Officer Tony Zeppetella, prosecutors wasted no time. And within weeks, Marion County announced they'd be seeking the death penalty. But this wasn't going to be a quiet case. Benjamin had already given an interview from jail, insisting the shooting was an accident, that the gun slipped from his hand and fired while he was running. A friend backed up his version of events, saying Richie panicked because he was on probation and feared going back to prison. But regardless of intent, a police officer was dead. On August 10th, the jury returned their verdict, guilty on all counts: murder, auto theft, illegal firearm possession, and resisting arrest. The courtroom was tense. Officer Tony's widow, Dee Dee, was present throughout the trial. After the verdict, she told reporters she wanted only one thing: for Benjamin Richie to be executed. She said nothing else would be justice. But Richie showed no remorse. During proceedings, he laughed in court. He interrupted witnesses. When Dee Dee called him a coward, Richie looked her in the eye and called her the B word. At sentencing, Richie's lawyers tried to save him. They said he had suffered brain damage, that his mother had used drugs while pregnant, and that he grew up in chaos and never had a chance. They painted a picture of a broken boy who grew into a broken man, but the jury didn't agree. They didn't see a victim. They saw a killer. The prosecution told the jury that suffering doesn't excuse murder. That plenty of people grow up in chaos and don't become killers. And in this case, a man had gunned down a police officer in cold blood. Then came the detail that sealed it. Tattooed on Benjamin's neck was a number 37. And it wasn't random. That was Officer Tony's unit number, a permanent trophy inked into his skin. A reminder he intended to brag about for the rest of his life in prison. But he wouldn't get that chance. On August 14th, the jury came back with their decision. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the verdict was unanimous. Benjamin would be sentenced to death. He was transferred to Indiana's death row. But Benjamin Richie wasn't alone that night. With him in the stolen van were Vincent Rucker and James Luttrell, who also ran after the crash, but neither fired a weapon. Rucker, the driver, was sentenced to 85 years in prison. Luttrell, who was also in the van, received 50 years. Both were convicted for their roles in the felony that led to Officer Tony's death, but neither faced the death penalty. Only one man pulled the trigger. Only one man was sentenced to die. And for most, that would be the end of the story. But for Benjamin, it wasn't. At least not yet. Thousands of miles away in Sweden, a woman named Ivana watched a documentary about American death row inmates. Something about Benjamin Richie stayed with her. She couldn't explain it, she just felt drawn to him. So she reached out. Her letters turned into phone calls. Her phone calls turned into visits. She flew across the Atlantic to see him in person. Over time, they fell in love. They shared conversations through the prison glass. And despite his death sentence, Benjamin Richie was allowed to participate in Indiana's unique death row program, one that allows inmates to keep cats as pets inside their cells. And yes, Benjamin had a real cat. It was part of a state program to reduce isolation and improve inmate behavior. Anyway, for years, Benjamin appealed again and again, but no one wanted to hear what he said. And then came the date, May 20th, 2025, nearly 23 years after he first entered death row. In his final weeks, Benjamin asked for mercy. He filed for clemency, telling the parole board he was sorry, that he wasn't the same man who pulled the trigger in 2000, that he still had something left to give, something good. But no chances were left. At 44 years old, Benjamin Donnie Richie was executed by lethal injection in Indiana. For his last meal, Benjamin chose the tour of Italy from Olive Garden, a plate of chicken parmigiana, lasagna, and fettuccine alfredo. Just after midnight, the execution process began. His final words were simple. I love my family, my friends, and all the support I've gotten. I hope they all find peace. At 12:46 a.m., Benjamin was pronounced dead. A man was executed. Another man had been killed 25 years earlier. Both lives ended violently. One instantly, the other slowly. One left behind a grieving wife and 2 children. The other left behind a past filled with scars, and a woman across the ocean who had fallen in love with a man condemned to die. Whether justice was served or a tragedy was repeated depends on who you ask. But what can't be denied is this: 2 families live with the weight of that night. And neither will ever be the same. If you're passionate about real true crime stories, raw justice, and deep emotional narratives, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a case. Every click helps uncover more truth.